As CMU celebrates its 125-year anniversary, we really have an opportunity to consider the distance the university has come and those who have shaped our fabric and culture. Business education has been at the heart of CMU since its inception, having been formed in 1892 as a normal school and business institute. It was in 1960 the College of Business Administration emerged as a distinct entity, and in those intervening 58 years, a few very special people have had a truly profound effect on the college and the lives of those students who have entered our doors. Among them are other Hall of Famers, and we have their pictures here, Doug Iles, Bob Cook, Lyle Wilhite, and of course Leonard Plachta, all of whom were iconic figures in the life of the college. Tonight, Dr. Daniel Edward Vetter will join that esteemed group. Faculty members, staff, and students alike consistently use the term father figure to describe Dan Vetter's impact to the college. Now, I'm sorry to say, Dan, some of the students actually use the word grandfather figure, but that's kind of how it is. For those of us who have served on the Roundtable and other advisory boards for the college, the one constant over the past 2 decades has been Dan. His optimism, his belief in CMU, and his confidence in the future have done much to build our alumni community and to strengthen our network. Amid all the changes in senior leadership over those years, Dan has truly been the safe harbor. One of the personal leadership strengths Dan is known for, and that I've personally observed in the numerous times I've had an opportunity to visit campus over the last few years, is his capacity to be cool under fire. Dan is very cool under fire. No matter how big the crisis, Dan never lets them see him sweat. With that trademark Dan Vetter smile, he listens, he analyzes, and then he takes action with patience and perseverance like no other, and produces results. So just kind of a quick, short personal story, maybe to provide a little insight into this gift that Dan has. When I actually arrived on campus a few years ago to start my executive and residence program and to begin teaching, I actually found out the day before I was scheduled to be in my first class to teach that I needed to produce a social security card for CMU administration. And coming from California, that was not an easy task. So I kind of panicked. And I went to Dan and kind of described the situation. And this wasn't a university crisis or anything, but it was kind of a personal crisis for me. And, I'll never forget that conversation. Dan kind of looked at me, gave me that trademark smile. We kind of analyzed the situation together. And then he gave me the right course of action. But what I really remember is at the end of kind of describing what the right course of action was, he said, "And if that doesn't work, go ahead and teach anyway and we'll fix it afterward." I was told at the time of his retirement, Dan was the longest serving senior officer in the university's academic division. He served 29 years at CMU, 3 years as interim dean of the College of Business, 10 years as Senior Associate Dean, and 6 years as Associate Dean. Dan's impact has far surpassed his deanly roles. He served as Editor-in-Chief of the American Journal of Business. He directed our MBA program and strengthened the pipeline from Michigan businesses to our graduate program. As we all know, professional certification is a big part of who we are at CMU today, and it was Dan's vision and leadership that really moved us so rapidly down that path. Dan is a man of great personal integrity and truly a model of professionalism. The Hall of Fame induction is truly rightly fitting for the myriad of contributions that Dan has made to the College of Business Administration during his tenure. Tonight, we honor the man who steadied the ship through tough times, mentored dozens of faculty as they strove to earn tenure, helped build the level playing field on which everyone competed, and helped secure the reputation of the college for everyone who calls the College of Business Administration home. I could go on, but I think this might be the right time to take a look at what I think is a fantastic video that provides some additional insights to Dan's many accomplishments, and really only a few of the many. So let's roll the video.
Congratulations, Dan Vetter. Congratulations, Dan. Congratulations, Dan. Congratulations, Dan.
Hi, Dan. Wish we could be with you tonight. Congratulations on your induction at the College of Business at Central Michigan. We're sending our love and best wishes and good thoughts.
Hi, Dan. This is how I would typically greet Dan, about mid-afternoon as I walked back to get that last cup of coffee, and I'd look in and he'd be looking at that point in utter dismay at whatever was on his computer screen.
If I were to describe Dan in several terms, one would be mentor. The other would be stable. Dan has worked through several administrations and been conscientious, which is the third word I would use, throughout everything. He was a sort of an island in a storm in many cases.
Dan has devoted his career into making the CBA a premium business school.
Many of the things that have been accomplished in the college, in my administration and other administrations, were done because of the work that he did behind the scenes, very quietly.
He's surprising. He's very, very passionate about his work, and he's very encouraging.
He is an incredibly caring individual.
Dr. Vetter never had to be the loudest voice in the room. No matter if it was a small meeting, committee meeting, college meeting, he let people have a voice. And he knew everyone had talents and skills. And so sometimes he was a quiet man, but he was always carefully listening, observing, thinking things through. And with Dr. Vetter, lots of times it was just a simple sentence would be the solution. It could be a yes, or it could be no. But a lot of those no's were good for the college.
One of the things we worked with as an MBA advisory board was really trying to look at how the CMU MBA program stacked up against other MBA programs. And I remember Dan did a very, very good job of helping share some benchmarking studies that were done, and he engaged this advisory board very effectively in number one, helping us understand that data, and then number two, having a very healthy debate leading to, I think, ultimately some good ideas on how do we continue to improve relative to these other programs that we compete with.
We had decided that we wanted to, when we graduated, have an MBA book. We started researching other colleges and universities. Harvard University does an MBA resume book. They send it out to all these companies with a letter from their dean. And he said, sure, go ahead and do that. Do you know how to write resumes? And we're like, no, we don't know how to do that. So he actually paired us with someone from Student Services who came in and taught us how to write resumes. And we put together an MBA book. And then he wrote a beautiful letter as like the cover for it, and then we sent it out to about 200 agencies or organizations throughout the United States, and even I think there are 2 or 3 places that were overseas. And it was fabulous. We had like 3 that got jobs, interviews and jobs right away, so it was really nice.
I know we celebrate our 125th anniversary of the university, and he may not have been there quite that long, but from my point of view, he's been there as long as I've been at CMU.
Dan was a great manager to work for because he didn't micromanage. He let us run with it, but then when we needed help, he was perfectly willing to step in, perfectly willing to give someone that little nudge that they needed in order to make sure that things got done.
Dan has been really special, not so much for what he did, but for the kind of person that he was. Dan was a voice of reason, a steadying influence, and a man of great personal integrity that kind of leveled the playing field for all competitors in the College of Business. But over his 30-year career, Dan has really been a transformational figure for the college. There are so many things that Dan leaves that represent legacies. The Student Managed Investment Fund, the banking school. He served as editor of the Mid-American Journal of Business that transformed into a major publication, the American Journal of Business. And he was a leading force in professional certifications for the college. Dan was the one who got the $2 million contract from Dow Chemical Corporation that led to our Lean Six Sigma certification. And of course, Dan served on 3 separate occasions as the senior accreditation officer for the college, assuring us of our AACSB accreditation. Dan's contributions to the college are more than you can imagine.
I have here what we call the Book of Vetter. We created this book for Dan when he retired, and it has a lot of words on the front page of things that he was involved in while he was here. You can see he was quite busy. But one of the things that you'll see here is leadership and vision, and those were 2 huge things that Dan always had. And we always talked about the fact that you could count on Dan to be calm in a crisis and to settle others down when they were riled up, sometimes me. And we often referred to Dan's characteristics as the Book of Vetter, and he doesn't know that, but the development staff did. And we always said if we could ever take a page out of the Book of Vetter, we would be better people for it. And that's what we're here to celebrate tonight, Dan, better people, and you're one of them.
Dan showed me how a person should live up to his responsibilities, both in the workplace and in his home life.
When he was done working, he turned into Dad. He never brought work home with him. I know he did, and I think he spoke to my mom about it, and he always shielded us from those things, but he never brought his emotions and his work home with him, and I think that's what made him a better dad and also ultimately a better professional.
While Dad was working with you for the past 29, almost 30 years, he was being an amazing father to Patrick and myself, and he was going to baseball games and ballet recitals and cheerleading competitions and more baseball games and driving us to college and moving us to Chicago or wherever we needed to go or be. And he was just always so generous with his time. See, I am crying a little bit. Don't listen. He was always so generous with us.
He leads by example. And rather than trying to coerce or force people to do things, he kind of shows them how things should be done. And I think he has a quiet intensity. He just keeps going and going and going. He never gives up.
We wouldn't be where we are today without Dan.
Please join us in welcoming Dan Vetter to the stage to receive his honor.
That was Old Man Down the Road, wasn't it? Yeah, that's appropriate. Thank you so much, Keith. Vice President Kathy Wilbur, First Lady Emeritus Louise Plachta, she's back there somewhere, members of the Hall of Fame, members of the CBA Roundtable, friends, family, faculty, and staff. I am really humbled. I am very humbled by this honor and the privilege to speak to you this evening. My congratulations to John Voigtman. John has been a valuable advisor to the college for a number of years, and I've gotten to know him very well. And congratulations to both Terry and John's generosity to the university and the college. People often ask me, what does an associate dean do? Well, you do everything the dean doesn't want you to do. And that's a lot of different things. So I guess it was 16 years as an associate dean, 3 years as interim dean, moving tables, cooking hot dogs, even going on some trips that the dean didn't want to go to. I got to go to Brazil, I got to go to India, so there were some really great things. It was a couple of years ago I made a presentation to some new associate deans at an accreditation meeting. And I told them, your primary job is to get things done. But if you want to keep your job, you got to make the dean look good. And I've got to admit that sometimes it was tough. I also received more questions about how to do that from that group of associate deans. I also had to do some training. We had, several deans that had little or no experience as dean when they were appointed, and we kind of worked things out and usually worked pretty well together. But I've got to tell you, the main advantage of being associate dean is that when you screw up, or when, let's say, the dean and the associate dean screw up, the president and the provost blame the dean. My story is about a guy who tried to do his best and was very fortunate to be associated with an outstanding business college, university, and work for some extraordinary people. I was hired by Dick Sussman and came to the Department of Finance in 1988. A good friend of mine, Dave Carmen, you heard him up there, he's sitting right over here, was very influential in me accepting the position as a regular faculty member here. Dave and I were buddies at the University of Nebraska, but he studied accounting. I studied finance. Leonard Plachta was the business dean when I was hired. And I've got to tell you something about Leonard. Leonard, probably in my mind, his greatest accomplishment was getting the college accredited, and I believe that was in 1983. It was really important for the reputation of the college, especially among peer institutions. Leonard, of course, went on and became president of CMU in the early 1990s, and he really was the right person at the right time to deal with some very difficult financial challenges for the university. I had the opportunity also to work with Roger Kessler, right over there, that first face over there. Roger Kessler and I spent countless hours searching Midland for an appropriate facility for the MBA program. This was in the late 1990s. Through his leadership, we got a building in Midland. We became much more visible in Midland at that time. You should also be aware that Roger played a very instrumental role, probably most important role, in getting CMU to accept and use SAP. SAP is a widely recognized integrated business software. The college benefited greatly. We have a nationally, internationally recognized SAP program today. My first boss as a dean, I think it's really easiest to talk to me about my career in the dean's office by really focusing on the time periods in which I served under particular deans, which was about 19 years. My first boss was Terry Arndt. Terry Arndt was responsible for successfully leading the college through a very challenging accreditation team visit in 1994. I don't know if you're aware of this, but Terry initiated 2 annual events that still exist today. The CBA golf outing, Tom Wyrick has a lot to do with that today, and also Dialogue Days. Dialogue Days continues. Literally hundreds of business people and alumni have come to the college and interacted with students throughout the years. Terry hired me as an associate dean and MBA director in 1997. And I got to tell you the truth. Early on in the semester, I looked like a deer in headlights. I had experience at Drake University, where I came from, as a department chair, but nothing like this. beginning of the semester, we were in Grand 105, everything came through through that office. And I remember later on that semester, Kathy Schaefer, some of you might remember Kathy Schaefer, the assistant to the dean. You know, it might have been October, November. She came to me and said, Dan, I didn't think you were going to make it through that semester, that first semester. And to tell you the truth, you know, there were some days that were kind of crazy. But I did, and with the help of a lot of people. At that time, in the late 1990s, we were beginning to make stronger efforts to collaborate with international institutions. You saw some pictures up there. Probably the first significant formal relationship we had was with the Arab Academy, which is located in Alexandria and Cairo, Egypt. It was really a great relationship because we had a number of their students transfer as undergraduates, complete their degree here, and also MBA students, and we also had one of their faculty come here and teach. But we also had several of our faculty teach there during the summer, and so that was a very successful relationship. Those trips were a lot of fun. I went to Egypt twice, and we literally rode horses right next to the Sphinx. My second boss was John Schleed in 1999. John was the first in the college to recognize the value of online education. He also began the initiative to revise the undergraduate business program. This was big for us. We finally revised the program. We were successful in 2005. We also established another very important international relationship with JNTU in Hyderabad, India. And we still get students from JNTU today. This agreement was established in 2001 and has brought hundreds of students to our graduate programs. They completed their MBA program or their MSI program here, MSIS program. And I should give a lot of credit to Kumar Palmaswamy from the management department who's passed on. He was the initial contact for this relationship. Excuse me. I then served as interim dean from 2004 to 2006. You talk about challenges. We were faced with an accreditation review in 2004-05, and we were one of the first, literally the first handful of schools that were coming up under the new, tougher standards. And all I'm going to say is that we eventually made it. One of my proudest accomplishments is that we began a Six Sigma partnership with Dow Chemical. I believe 9 of our faculty earned Six Sigma Black Belt certification through Dow's program. At that time, George Ross served as CMU's Vice President for Finance and Administration, and he was able to match up all of our faculty with projects here at CMU. My third boss, Mike Fields, was dean from 2006 to 2009. Mike was very visionary. He grasped the importance of developing an online MBA program. Today, online MBA program enrollments are greater than face-to-face MBA enrollments. Mike, to his credit, also saw the value of expanding SAP, especially at the graduate level. The SAP program took off and for many years was ably managed by Frank Andre. I don't know if Frank's here tonight. Again, I served as interim dean in 2009-10. We were able to successfully maintain our accreditation. We were also able to secure, as Chuck said, a $2 million total contract to deliver Six Sigma training online to Dow Chemical employees. This was big for us, worldwide. But the value for us was that we got the material to use for our students. So we were able to develop programs that certified our students right now at the green belt level, and literally we've certified hundreds of students in Six Sigma, greatly increasing their value to employers. I'm sure some of them mentioned that either on their resume or face-to-face at the career fair. My fourth boss, Chuck Crespi, became dean in 2010. Chuck's been the most visionary of the deans, let's say the most visionary of my 4 dean bosses. I get that right. Chuck's focus on student success and all of his accomplishments should be commended. Highlights include the new venture competition. We mentioned the certification programs. We must be getting on to probably 11 or 12 by now. Growth in internships, the creation of the entrepreneurship department, and this beautiful grand renovation. Thanks, Chuck. Appreciate it. It's really been a pleasure serving under you. Thanks. At this time, I'd like to introduce my family who's here. I think you saw a few of them there. My daughter, Lindsay, and my son, Patrick. And I'll just take a minute. I mentioned some of our close friends, Norm and Susan Worley, Deb Skinner, Janet and Andy Henning, Dyke and Phyllis Heinze, Dave and Sue Carmen. I'm glad you're here. Well, I mentioned I had 4 bosses, but I've gotten rid of those. My fifth and permanent boss is my wife, Bonnie, and I wouldn't give her up for anything. I'd like to especially thank the CBA staff. It's been a pleasure working with you. I greatly appreciate your dedication, your perseverance, and really your intelligence throughout the years. And there's too many of you to name, but many of you have been named this evening already. Finally, President Ross has made student success an imperative for the university. With that in mind, I'd like to honor and recognize 2 great guys right over here. Bob Cook and Doug Isles, both members of this Hall of Fame, who passed away way too soon, but epitomized what faculty can do for student success. Bob Cook, some of you know Bob, logistics management faculty member with help from his wife Karen, placed, and I think I'm truthful in saying this over the years because it was decades, thousands of students in internships and career positions. Bob dedicated his life to student success. If you know Bob, you know that. Doug Isles. Doug Isles, I remember when he started here, the way I look at it, he took us by storm with his can-do positive attitude, his high energy level. He really changed the personal financial planning program. He brought in employers to hire the students. He revised the curriculum so students could sit for the CFP exam and developed a very high-quality program. I have great respect for these 2 guys, and I guess if there's any legacy here, we should always remember their impact on students and learn by it. With that in mind, my last words are aimed at the faculty and staff of the college. Do whatever you can in your own way to help students succeed and keep up the great work. It is a privilege and an honor to speaking to you tonight. It is a privilege and an honor to be inducted into this Hall of Fame. I am humbled to be in the company of these outstanding individuals. Thank you so much.